Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanao Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. And we'll attempt to share the screen here. Go, March 31st in Asia, last day of March. First topic, 3 stages of faith. October 2009, Publisher's Desk. This Publisher's Desk was written in response to seeing how Hindu youth often encounter skepticism in other youth that God does not really exist and have no ready response to this challenge. The article explains that the spiritual truths of Sanatana Dharma, initially accepted without proof, are ultimately proved through personal experience. And we got our familiar definition of faith for those of you who were here last week. I think it was in that one too. A few years ago, I presented these ideas on faith at a satsang at the Chinmaya Mission in Houston, Texas. For the occasion, I added a number of quotes from Swami Chinmayananda, which I have left in the material. Faith is central to all the world's religions. Webster's dictionary defines religious faith as unquestioning belief in God and religious tenets that does not require proof or evidence. The Hindu view of faith is somewhat different. It is more than hope, more than belief. This is because in Hinduism, faith is not a static state. Rather, it is constantly deepening through personal experience and spiritual growth. The spiritual truths of Sanatana Dharma, initially accepted without proof, are ultimately proved through personal experience. Then we get Swami Chinmayanandaji's quote. Faith is to believe what you do not see. The reward of faith is to see what you believed. Beautifully said. Gurudeva presents this deeper aspect of faith by citing an old saying favored by pragmatic intellectuals, seeing is believing, and then states that a more profound adage is believing is seeing. He goes on to explain that today's scientists and educators often turn their perceptions off by seeing with their 2 eyes and passing judgments based on what they currently believe. The rishis of the past and the rishis of the now and those yet to come also are seers. Their seeing is not with the 2 eyes, it is with the 3rd eye, the eye of the soul. Gurudeva observed, the intellect and its capacity to contain truth is a very limited tool, while faith is a very broad, accommodating, and embracing faculty. The mystery of life and beyond life of God is really better understood through faith than through intellectual reasoning. Focus of many religions is on helping those with no faith in God to believe in God. For Western faiths, belief in God is for many both the beginning and the end of the process. Once you have come to accept God, there is nothing more to do. Your salvation is assured. Pretty simple. However, in Hinduism, belief is only the first step. Hindus want to move beyond just believing in God to experiencing the divine for themselves. Faith, called astikya in Sanskrit, is the 4th of the 10 spiritual practices called niyamas, literally meaning to unleash. And niyamas are ethical and religious practices that release or cultivate one's refined soul qualities. These observances comprise the 2nd limb of the Ashtanga 8-limbed yoga system, which is codified in numerous scriptures such as Varaha Upanishad. Gurudeva summarizes faith as a Hindu practice. Astikya is to cultivate an unshakable faith. Believe firmly in God, God's Guru, and your path to enlightenment. Trust in the words of the masters, the scriptures and traditions. Practice devotion and sadhana to inspire experiences that build advanced faith. Be loyal to your lineage, one with your Satguru. Shun those who try to break your faith by argument and accusation. Avoid doubt and despair. Like faith, the world's creation is addressed. In all religions, a common Vedantic view is that God creates and is his creation. This panentheistic vision contrasts with other religious views, such as creation out of nothing and non-creation, the view that reality is beginningless and eternal. The Vedantic view of God's creating the world from himself, or emanational creation, is described in the Mundaka Upanishad. What analogy would you use to describe God's creating the world from himself? The idea of emanational creation. You can describe it through analogy. Which analogy would you choose? As a spider spins and withdraws its web, as herbs grow from the earth, as hair grows on the head and the body of a person, so also the imperishable arises this universe. Try that one again. So also from the imperishable arises this universe. Examining these concepts of faith and creation together enables us to make an interesting comparison between the perspectives of a modern scientist and a Hindu sage. The scientist's natural question is, how can you prove the existence of God? The sage's natural rejoinder is, how can you deny the existence of God? This polarity arises from the fact that everything the scientist perceives is matter, and everything the sage sees is God. Interesting. The cultivation of faith can be compared to the growth of a tree. As a young sapling, it can easily be uprooted, just as faith based solely on belief can easily be shaken or destroyed. Important question. How can we further strengthen faith? Faith bolstered with philosophical knowledge is like a medium-sized tree, strong and not easily disturbed. So, the first way we strengthen faith is by acquiring more philosophical knowledge. How do we further strengthen faith? Faith matured by personal experience of God and the gods is like a full-grown tree, which we can hold on to and which can withstand external forces. So personal experience is the way to make your faith the strongest. Let's look more closely at faith's three developmental stages. Blind faith. Faith in its initial stage is simply belief without the support of either knowledge or experience. Keeping our faith strong in this phase depends heavily on the company we keep. We need to associate with spiritual companions and avoid worldly and non-religious people. Attending a weekly satsang with devotees is sustaining. Having the darshan of visiting swamis and other Hindu religious leaders helps keep our faith strong. as we see them as living examples, souls who know from experience the principles we believe in. So we're very dependent upon the people we interact with. So if we can interact with religious people regularly, that helps us not lose our faith when it's at the stage of blind faith. Form conviction. Faith in a second stage is belief strengthened by a sound understanding of Hindu philosophy. My guru called this the bedrock. That's what's in the picture there, the bedrock, on which faith is sustained. Sound understanding of Hindu philosophy, second type of faith. This unmoving foundation of faith is established by studying in a systematic and consistent manner to increase your knowledge about Hindu philosophy and practices. Such a study can include comparing Hinduism with the world's other major religions to understand how they differ and how they are similar. Very useful practice. And Gurudev is teaching, some Hindus say, aren't all religions the same? Aren't all religions one? Or I believe in all religions. So that's actually, it's close to what we're trying for, but not close enough. What we want to say is all religions are good. Not that they're the same. All religions are good. People of all religions can stay in the religions they're in. Hindus are not trying to convert. But they're quite different in their beliefs and practices. Oh, a story. A few years ago, I visited the Anaheim, California Chenmaya Mission. This is when it was next to Disneyland there. I mentioned in my talk that next door, meaning Disneyland, is a place of make-believe. Whereas here at Chenmaya Mission, you are a place of make-belief, referring to its strong educational program. Attempt at humor there. And the third and strongest type of faith, third stage of faith, personal experience transforms informed conviction into certainty. Gurudeva refers to this inner knowing as advanced faith, established by one's own spiritual, unsought-for, unbidden revelations. Visions or flashes of intuition, which one remembers even stronger as the months go by, more vividly than something read from a book, seen on television, or heard from a friend or a philosopher. He stresses that spiritual experiences, when verified by what yogis, rishis, and sadhus have seen and heard, and whose explanations centuries have preserved, create a new superconscious intellect. This type of faith, more unknowing than a conviction, is unshakable. So regularly I get asked the question, how do I know if this which I think was a vision was really a vision? That this experience was real and not my imagination. So this Gurudev is telling us how we know here, which is what I quote. Because you remember it even stronger as the months go by. The memory gets stronger. Totally different from just an ordinary dream. You wake up from a dream and within a few minutes you forget the dream. You can't remember it. It's a different part of your mind was involved in the dream that is involved in waking consciousness. But this becomes stronger over time. That's how you know it was real. Personal realization is the fulfillment of the second part of our earlier quote from Chinmayanandaji. The reward of faith is to see what you believed. As we evolve spiritually, faith matures. I've seen so many devotees growing into a deeper relationship with God, a more profound acceptance of divinity in their lives. Here are some examples. First example. A girl attends the local temple weekly with her parents, but never thinks much about Hindu beliefs and practices. As a teenager, she enjoys reading books about holy men and women, the stories of their lives and their wise sayings. The experience of these great souls noticeably deepens her conviction in the precepts she was taught at the temple as a child. Second example, a young man attends an upadesha by a visiting Swami, whose presence is radiant with spiritual light. His talk increases the seeker's faith and inspires him to intensify his religious practices. Third example, while worshipping at an ancient shrine to Lord Ganesha during a pilgrimage to Sri Lanka, a man has a life-altering vision. The Lord of Obstacles walks out of the shrine and stands before him, giving blessings, then walks back into the shrine. This dramatic experience convinces him through and through that the gods are real. Fourth example, a woman meditates every morning, but her thinking always distracts her and she never goes deeply within. One morning, for no apparent reason, distractions recede, and she finds herself going in and in and in, staying in an expansive, peaceful state for a long time. Returning to normal awareness, she sees life differently, holding a new perspective that God is a consciousness permeating all, and she is that consciousness. The belief that the soul and God are one takes on new meaning to her. Fifth example, lots of examples. Faith-building experience that many Hindus shared occurred in 1995. It all began when one man in New Delhi had a dream that Ganesha craved a little milk. In the early morning, he went to a temple where a priest allowed him to offer a spoonful of milk to the small stone image. Both watched in astonishment as the milk disappeared. Within hours, news had spread across India that Ganesha was accepting milk offerings. Tens of millions of people of all ages flocked to temples across the globe and had the same experience. A Reuters report quoted Anila Premji. I held the spoon out level and it just disappeared. To me, it was a miracle. It gave me a feeling that there is a God, a sense of spirit on this earth. An important aspect of deepening our faith is building confidence in our innate divinity and our ability to experience it. We are fortunate in the modern Hindu world to have enlightened men and women in whom we can recognize high spiritual attainments. In them we have living examples of the illumined state we hope to one day achieve. We must remember that their attainment is our own potential. It is, in fact, the spiritual destiny of each soul in this or future life. The path to such attainment involves regular practice of devotion and meditation, which leads eventually to personal experiences of the divine. And moving on to our second topic. Answering questions sent into satsang@hindu.org. We have lots of questions this week. Can contentment ever lead to complacency? Can you become so content that not much matters anymore? Let's start the answer by reading Gurudeva's comments on the Anahata chakra and dynamic complacency, which is another term for contentment. In my experience, the Anahata chakra is the resting place of dynamic complacency, of thoughtful perception and quietude. Those of a lower nature arriving in the bloom of this chakra are released from turbulent emotions, conflicting thoughts, and disturbances. This to many is the end of the path, attaining peace or shanti. Once one attains shanti, as just described in my experience, this marks the beginning of the path, or part 2, the second level. It is from here that the practices of Raja Yoga take hold, once shanti is attained. And next we have Gurudeva's comment on striving. Even great yogis and rishis who have awakened into the higher chakras continue to do more and more sadhana. They are constantly working to keep the forces flowing through the higher centers so that the lower ones do not claim their awareness. And now to a direct answer to the question. Can contentment ever lead to complacency? Can you become so content that not much matters anymore? The answer is yes. And the solution to avoiding that situation, which of course you don't want to be in, which will lead to eventually losing the attainment of contentment, is to keep up with your daily sadhana routine, striving to go ever deeper. So a good sadhana routine that you keep up every day prevents you from becoming complacent and then eventually losing the contentment. How do states of emotion relate to the chakras? Answer: it depends on the emotion. Happiness, sadness, and excitement don't relate to the Anahata chakra. They can be experienced at any age. In other words, a 2-year-old can be happy, sad, and excited. 2-year-old is only in the Muladhara, is the highest chakra. And then an older person can experience the same emotions. So these type of emotions don't relate directly to specific chakras. Contentment relates to the Anahata chakra, as would a deep sense of gratitude, not a shallow one. Deep sense of gratitude is really coming from the soul. So those show that some emotions don't relate at all to specific chakras, and some of the higher emotions do. What is the Vedic Jyotish perspective on lunar and solar eclipses? How should we view these times from a world and personal view? So we just had a lunar one, and we're coming up on a solar one soon. So answer regarding lunar eclipses. For an individual's birth chart, as per Hindu Shastras, eclipses are good for the moon signs that are the 3rd, 4th, 8th, 11th from the moon, from where the moon is during the eclipse, and difficult for 1, 2, 6, and 10. The 5th, 7th, 9th, and 12th positions are considered to be mixed good and bad. So it depends. For a lunar eclipse, it depends. And then for this last eclipse that just went by, for example, it's coming, sorry. And we managed to back up, that's good. Solar eclipses, as the upcoming April 8th eclipse, bring also changes on a global level, usually before and after. There are often significant transitions, especially of those in power. There can be unusual natural phenomena around the eclipses, like extreme weather and earthquakes. The energy around the eclipse impacts the mind and our general sense of well-being. It can be heavy and make the mind restless. It is best not to make significant decisions a few days before and after the eclipse. Keep life simple, meditative, and avoid doing a stressful project around the eclipses. So they're not inherently good or bad. It depends on your astrology and how it relates to the astrology of the eclipse. And solar eclipses tend to disrupt things in a broader way than lunar ones. Getting a heavy rain here. Third topic is looking at quotes from Yoga Swami, words of our master. Bad men obey out of fear. Good men obey out of love. What does that mean to you? My thought was those who are in the higher portion of the lower chakras are motivated by fear, as the fear chakra is one of the chakras they live in. So to be motivated by fear, you have to have an active fear chakra. Our devotees are living in the higher chakras above fear, and therefore fear has no place in the teachings given to them. This includes parents not utilizing fear to motivate children. Children should love their parents and not fear them. So we don't want to discipline children in a way that is utilizing fear. Puts them in the fear chakra, which can then be hard to close off. Oh, thank you very much. See if we can stop sharing. There we go. Clear the screen here or something. Oh.